In this video, I will explain how to work with phobias using Dianetics. What is Dianetics? How to apply it? See this video. So, if a person has, for example, fear of water, he is afraid of drowning, afraid when he has no bottom under his feet. He has a fear of water in general, when there's no boat or shore nearby, for example, and usually the cause is hidden pretty deep down here. Let's look at the example of how the events of his life today. Here let's say at this moment he has a fear of water, and other events that precede and follow. That's how I mark time intervals with lines. So this is today, he has this today, he came to you with this task. Ideally go down a notch lower and find a slightly past previous event that causes his fear of water. That is, when it was the previous time. Ideally, further along in the process in the diagnostic session, we find another event that similarly triggered the fear of water. And so we go further and further, deeper and deeper, and find these events in this chain, until we find the most important, the most key, the very first event, when this fear appeared, and it should be borne in mind that this event can be before birth, that is, when we had a human being in the mother's belly. Yeah, maybe it's not his own fear, but his mom's fear that's passed on to the baby. And so from then on, yes, it goes on, it permeates his whole life, and thus we have a fear of water. As of today. Ideally, with the help of Dianetics, we find these starting points and work with them. So, how does a psychotherapy session go? We have a therapist, we have a patient. We sit facing each other. It is very important that there is as much trust as possible between the patient and the therapist during the session. That is, people trusted each other, especially as far as the patient was concerned. Let me draw him here in a comfortable chair to make him feel as comfortable as possible. And the therapist needs to let the person know that whatever is going to happen is under their control. Why it's important? Because in a genetic session, as we move through the events, through this structure of events, the person will find it harder and harder to remember, harder and harder to give those memories. And perhaps at some point he will be scared, hurt, uncomfortable, and want to cut the session short and leave. We can certainly do that, but in that case we won't get anywhere, we won't solve the problem. You have to endure this state of being hurt, scared, keep going, keep going. That is, the therapist's task is very important here, in the sense that he must still control himself, and not let the person give up, that is, to reach the very end, to the very point where the central event, the most important thing, must be found. Therefore, it is very important to establish prior trust in this session, with the help of additional sessions. I mean, you don't usually do that on the first day of dating. You usually do this on the third, fourth session at least. And the person needs to explain that maybe the memories will hurt you. It may be difficult, but I will be there to help. Our challenge will be, despite the challenges, despite the fact that at some point you will want to cuss, cry, give up, end it all, despite all of that, we will need to keep going with you. I mean, we have to make a deal, right? I will. 1. It's an arrangement. Arrangement. About trust. That's the most important thing. 2nd, just a simple trance induction. Targeting. With guidance, we relax the person, preparing them for trance immersion. If you have the tools and the ability to make the person dive deeper, do it, because serious work, serious memories will surface. They need more immersion. What techniques do we use for deeper immersion? For example, when we take a person deep and when we bring them almost out of trance, then deep again, out of trance again. That's the kind of swing, it promotes a very deep dive. How can it be done? For example, by using the same account. It's the most popular, the easiest. For example, you induce a trance, from 1 to 10, count and say that when you name even numbers, the person will sink even deeper. And when you call odd numbers, for example, 3, 5, 7, in a light voice, you bring him back as if to the space of hours, and he almost comes out of trance. But then 6 comes along, and you dive even deeper. 7. It's okay, you're relaxed. We change the timbre of the voice and take the person into the depths with such swings. Pointing in depth. And 3rd, when we have had a homing, we ask the person to recall the closest event from today when they were afraid of water. Upcoming event. Closest. He recalls. He remembers, for example, he says, I'm at the sea, all my friends are laughing, I can't go in the water because I'm afraid of the depths. There's a man's fear. Okay, we take this event, and we break it down to the smallest particle possible. So here we have it, the first event. We have to take it apart into many, many pieces. What came before, what the person is surrounded by, what smells, what people are around, how they feel, what time of day it is, cold, warm, hot. I mean, we all have to figure out. On the first event, the man describes, I'm there in Egypt, friends, there, Xiasha, Maxim, everything is good, they have fun. You're asked to recall details, what color swimsuit, what temperature, what color fins, yes, everything, everything, everything. It's about getting the person into a trance as much as possible, a working trance, the kind of trance that we're going to benefit from. Oh, that's great. We remembered, yeah. Next, what we do when a person says, well, that's it, I don't know what to tell you anymore, I remember everything. We say, okay, let's go back again to that day and go through it again. Tell me what you see. That is, you will need to exercise the utmost perseverance here. Because he's gonna start talking again. He's about to start, man, I told you that. There may be moments like this, but the therapist must nevertheless persevere and continue with a little pressure, not let him give up. And the man remembers once more. A second time, he has to remember as many details as possible, even more. When he says, that's it, I remember everything, that's it, I remember. Next. And we remember more, yes, we make him say it again. The fear of water itself, yes, if there was no scary event, just him being scared to go in, then he should describe those feelings. And so he makes me scared, I don't know what's wrong with me. Here he has to repeat everything he repeated before, plus remember additional details. In this way, so that we have the therapist's confidence that he or she has remembered all that he or she can. That's the maximum. And then we go with it from there. To the second event. We say, okay, now try to remember an earlier event when you felt fear of water. And at that point the person starts to remember, let's say I'm 14 years old, and I went swimming in the waves, and I couldn't swim out because I couldn't feel the bottom. And he starts telling what the waves were like, who was on the shore, what kind of swim trunks he was wearing, how he felt, why he couldn't pay, what happened to him. That's the way we're running it. He says, that's it, I remember everything. All right, let's go back to the beginning of this event. Do it again, remembering finer details. Maybe something else will come. And the person again remembers the second event, very many details, repeats it, lives it again. And the further we go into events, the deeper he should be in trance. And the more his task is solved. There can be 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5, 6 approaches. If you're feeling a little small, maybe some more. And you can drive it straight. Next, let's say we're remembering, Good. Okay, let's think back to an earlier event. And just like that, one can go through all the events in one's life until one has the feeling that this is it, this was the first time. So there could be a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, as many events as you want, right down to the last one. This last event is our final event. We have to find him. And when we find him here, the therapist can do 2 things. The first way, if he is confident in himself and he knows in the moment how to help a person, he can in the moment do it. But that's a separate topic for other lessons on how to work with this. Or discovered, that is, recognize the problem, found it. It is a huge plus, it is a huge job, and it can free a person from this fear, already detecting this problem. Somewhere in my childhood. For example, his brother was playing with him, pushed him carelessly, he choked, and that's his first fear. That is, we must remember the event in the same way. Here we have the most important, the most key, but it's the furthest away. You have to try to remember it as carefully as possible, as many details as possible, in order to recreate it in your memory and work with it. When the person remembers where it started, they may see that there is no problem, that it was child's play, a prank, for example, yes, and something accidentally happened. He was frightened by a childish prank, and since then, all his life he has not let this fear to live in peace. But if there is some real threat to life hidden here, if there was a real fear, then I suggest that you take the person out of the trance and work with this fear in the next sessions.